Microphone up.
Microphone on, right?
That's right.
Okay, welcome. I always start saying okay. Uh, Welcome to Callers and Cars Getting a Drink. There's everybody can get their drink. Yeah, whatever do. Anyhow, today's guest caller is Tony Oxendine, and we'll see what we can find out. What
Are you
Tony's
talking? I'm gonna
up
shut
to.
my door.
Oh, on his off time. Well, there goes Tony. Well,
Now I'm
Hey,
back.
Joe.
next. Yeah.
Hey, Joe.
Yes.
I spoke to Ed Foote. Can you include him on your email list? He would like to jump in on some of these.
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely.
In fact, I don't know. Do you have Ed as one of your subjects? Because
Not
he'd be,
yet. No. I sent out a whole bunch of
yeah.
emails, and some people never responded to say, no way. It sounds hokey.
Oh,
You know, I don't want
well,
anybody to know about me. So yeah.
if you didn't include Ed, it would be a good time to, invite him or at least put him on the mailing list
Yeah.
because he wants to go to these.
Oh, he'd be a good one to have on too.
And he'd be great to have on as,
He's got quite a
there's
history.
Don Beck, there's John Engel.
Yeah.
Hello, hello. Hey, Mark.
Okay. So,
Yeah, I could picture it now, like a whole hour of jokes from Ed Foote.
Oh, no.
okay. Yeah.
Oh no.
Let's not do that.
Oi!
Ron.
Okay.
Oh, there's a blast from the past.
Yeah, isn't it? Gee, I should say. Okay. Well, Tony, I'm going to start with, we switched both sides of the mic here, so I'll ask you some questions that have to do with the calling side and some that had to do with off the mic side. But the first
Okay.
one I have, and for all the callers that are involved here, they want to know uh, how do you prepare for a dance or a festival, and what's the difference?
Not a whole lot of difference, other than if I'm preparing for a dance versus a weekend. The big thing, and let me explain what happened to a caller I worked with years and years ago, and I learned a big lesson from it. I was doing a week at a resort, and this caller came in, and at that time he was one of the young guns, and he was just, man, knocking them dead. Sunday night he had singing calls. They were bouncing off the roof, and they were dancing, floating off the floor. And then Monday he had all these workshop material things he was working and by Wednesday he'd called everything he knew,
Oh,
and he had nothing else to call. So that was for me and Flippo. So me and Flippo saved the rest of the week. Uh, the moral of that story is you don't want to go off and do everything in the beginning. So if I'm doing a weekend, I want to be number, and I just did one by myself, and I was telling some guys later on that's just really hard. There's a lot of calling because I was doing 2.5 hour dances, 2 hour workshops. I did like a Friday night dance, a Saturday morning session, Saturday afternoon session, Saturday night session, and a Sunday morning session. And that's just a lot of calling without trying to be repetitive. So I try to lay out some type of program to know that what I'm going to call, when I'm going to call it. I worry a lot about repeating the same types of singing calls. So that's one of the few times that I actually look down and I plan which singing calls I want to use and when I want to use them. Uh, because anytime you do any type of dance, to me, a weekend and a dance, as far as programming, as far as peaks and valleys that go like this, it's the same. If I were doing a week long program, it would still, my diagram would look the same as my dance. My tip would look the same. So I have to be careful where I put what types of songs in. I'm very particular to use particular types of rhythm at the beginning of a dance. I always try to use patter tunes, especially hoedowns, that have 2/4 rhythm to establish a nice dance rhythm at the beginning. Now, once I get them used to dancing to me and they understand that rhythm, they hear me that way, I don't worry so much about it from then on. But always the first couple of tips, and in a weekend, it would be the first couple of tips on Friday night and the first couple of tips on Saturday morning. Once I got through that on Saturday morning, I can go through the rest of the day on Saturday now because I've got them now for 3 sessions. I have them with me, so now they understand my cadence, how I'm going to call. So then I can get cute with music. Uh, that's essentially what I do. I'm real careful. I try not to do all royal stuff. I make a big effort not to do that because, and I don't care what label you are, all labels have a particular sound. And I can, if you play some of the old songs, if you put a global, for you guys been calling a long time, if you put a global song on, I can tell within the first 4 bars that's a global song. If you put one of the old chaparrals, I know, we all have a specific sound, and Royal has a sound. Even though we use two studios now, with two different engineers and different musicians, it still has a unique sound. So does rhythm, and so I want to be sure that I use several different labels, or as many labels as I can, so that my music sounds different. I think that's real important to have, to establish the feel of a dance is good music. If that answers anything.
Yeah, yeah. That that's a good answer. Like that. Um,
Now, as far as preparation, material wise, I don't do anything more. To me, a weekend dance is just a series of dances. Uh, and so I try to theme all of my tips anyway. So it's just a matter of me getting more. Since I'm calling more tips. If I'm doing a Friday night, Saturday afternoon, Saturday morning, Saturday night, that's a lot of tips that I have to theme. So then I have to go back into my wheelhouse and pull up some calls that maybe I don't use a lot and try to get creative with them.
Super. So I was talking to Wade last month, and I'm surprised he's not on here today. Uh,
He's on a boat. He's cruising.
Is he? What is this month? Okay, that's not fair. Anyhow, um, he said that he was at a caller school with you. I think he said you were 17. Were you that young when you started calling?
Well, yes and no. And he thought I just looked young for my age. I was probably closer to 20.
Okay.
I was calling when I was 17, but I count when I started calling as my first dance, and my first official dance that was in '74. I would have been 19.
Okay.
So I met Wade when I was 19.
Where was that dance?
Where was that dance that I met Wade? No, wait a minute. No. I'm lying to you. I met Wade in 1976. No, I met Wade in 1975 at the Kansas City Nationals. I think that was 75, 74, 75. I would have been 19. I met him at the National Convention, and I'll never forget. That's when he first had rhythm. It first came out, and he had a belt that on the back of it had Mr. Rhythm was on the back of it. I thought that was just the coolest thing I'd ever seen. I was a brand new dancer. Calling him a dancing a couple of years, been just picking up a microphone good. But it was after that, so it was probably a little later than that. I was probably 20 when we worked together.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. He threatened to be on to harass you, but obviously he's on the boat. Uh, I don't know if you remember the Memphis, Tennessee, when the National was there one time.
I remember that was 1980.
Was it? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the dates of all these things. Anyhow, I had just got done doing a yodeling singing call, and you were next. And as you walked by me to set up, you said, "I hate you." That's when everybody figures we don't want to be after a really good singer. Don't want to be after someone like Jack Lazary who did fantastic patter. Don't want to be after women. Don't want to be after kids. Uh, Someone even had said maybe even animal acts, but I don't think we have that problem. So yeah, that was.
I remember that. I remember 1980 because that was the year that I recorded "Pretty Woman," which was
Yeah.
that's the biggest selling record. I've had two real big ones, and that was one of my two real big ones. I have a gold record on the wall for that one.
Wow.
That one, I remember doing that one in 1980.
No, that wasn't on a Royal though.
No, that was on Ranch House.
Okay, because I got that. I like that with that bing 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 sound in it.
Yep,
Yeah.
that was on Ranch House.
Okay, I like that. What's the other one?
The other one, now, back in the day, we counted gold records as records that had sales of 25,000. That was back when records could actually sell that many. I had Pretty Woman was 1980, and the other was on Lumac, was the Square Dances On, or Gold Rush.
Oh
It came
yes.
out first as Gold Rush, and then when Mac and I redid it, we called it the Square Dances On.
Okay.
And I recorded that with Mac Letson in Muscle Shoals, where the Jackson Five recorded their first album.
Oh,
Same studio.
oh my gosh, that's big money.
I it's kind of funny. I was talking to the guy that was our first engineer when we first did Royal Records. Jerry and I first did Royal Records. Our engineer at that time was a guy named Kevin McManus, who then he had done some stuff on Chaparral. He had done some stuff for Rhythm, uh, and that was back in 1985. And in 1985, union musicians. You want to guess what the Nashville musicians made? Again, and the only reason I know this is because the Royal checkbook. I don't write many checks. I write maybe 2 checks a year, 3 checks a year for the last 50 years, 40 years, however long it's been. So I still have the original register when we wrote down so I know exactly what we paid the musicians on the very first session. Would you have an idea what a professional studio musician in Nashville studio rates would have made back in 1985 for 3 hours, a 3 hour session?
$75.
$85.
80,
You're pretty close. $85. And you want to guess what that same musician makes now?
oh, 1,500.
No, not that bad. A little over 400, about 470.
Oh, okay.
It depends. Now depends on the scale of they have different scales. Master scale is one scale, one mount. Demo scale is another. So it all hinges. And then some of the guys you got to pay more. You got to pay cartage for some of the guys, like the drummer or the piano player. You got to pay cartage. So that's usually maybe sometimes $100, not extra $150.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds like it takes quite a bit then. How many people would be recording then?
Generally, you mean musicians?
Yeah.
Generally, I use 8.
Oh,
Generally,
holy smokes.
uh, seven to 8, depending on. There's one group. It's kind of funny. We have our steel player, the piano player, and the bass player that played on have been on every session that Royal Records has ever done since the very beginning. Since 1985, they've been on every one. Those 3 guys. I'm sorry, and the rhythm guitarist, 4 guys. So I have a bass. My basic players are drummer, rhythm guitarist, lead guitarist, bass player, and either fiddle, and then usually maybe a harmonica or saxophone or something. So it's always somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 to 8 guys, depending on whether they're using mini horns or not.
Oops.
And then the leader of the band gets paid. He gets paid double. So it's like having 2 musicians. So then it's the equivalent of having 9 players.
Wow. Now, do you have to pay more for your studio time other than the musician?
Yes, that's separate. The musicians are one price, and then the studio is another price, and the engineers. So you can rent the studio with an engineer or without an engineer.
Oh, well,
But I have to rent with an engineer because I don't know how to turn the knobs. I know what I want to hear, but I don't know how to
yeah,
move the knobs.
yeah.
So
Uh, that's good. Well, so now all you folks that are callers out there on this particular session, do not complain about $10 for a piece of music, especially when you're getting several variations of the thing. High, low, medium. You get the vocal, you get the cue sheet. Um, and that's fantastic.
fortunately, music production now is cheaper than it's ever been, which is why you have so many producers now. Because
Oh,
the one of the big expenses earlier was producing records. You had to physically pay for the vinyl. So that was a dollar and a half or so just for the vine, just for the record. And now you don't have that cost. And now there's digital studios, and so you don't have to pay eight musicians in Nashville scale to get quality music. There's good music out there. It's different. I prefer I prefer live musicians over digitized musicians, but there's some good songs out there that are that don't cost a ton of money to make each time, which is why we have so many different labels now, which is good for the industry, I guess.
yeah. So, why did you become a caller? What?
Mhm. I started dancing when I was just out of high school. I was 17, and I worked with underprivileged kids at the for the city of Sumter, the city I lived in. And so in the summer program was essentially whatever the kids did, I had to do. And so we worked with, like, they were all teenagers, but 12 to 15, 16 years old. And one summer they came up with the idea of square dancing. So I had to do it. The guy that taught us to dance was not a caller; he was a dancer. He had never called, and so he didn't know how to resolve. So I went all the way through lessons, never knowing that you're supposed to get the same corner each time. He just called out and left whenever he wanted to, and then so cutting across and stuff was standard for us. And he didn't sing, and so he eventually did learn. He learned God, I forget the singing call now. Ogie from Muskogee, I think he finally learned to sing, and so that was what our club was. I mean, he just called out on the left. Eventually, when the club decided to become, that summer, we decided to form a teen club and be a real club. He was decided to go to college school, and he asked me if I would go with him, and I said he'd pay for it. I said, well, sure, and so we went to Promenade Hall in Maryville, Indiana, with Dick Jones, Rich Shaver, and Dick Han, and Davis. Shucks, I can't remember his first name. His last name was Davis. Anyway, and so I went to college school, and that's when I got the bug. That's when I saw, God, these guys could actually sing. They were doing like songs I'd never heard, and that's what gave me the bug. And that would have been in 1974, August of 74.
Wow.
And then I started doing singing calls for that club. He was the club caller. I did the singing calls. Eventually, I learned a little patter. I started calling for a couple of other clubs in the state. I wound up at one time I had 4 clubs. I was going to college full time, and I called every night. Called Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I paid my way through college calling.
That's great. What were you studying in college?
Math and computer science.
So that did you a lot of good now, huh?
Oh gosh, yeah. Because it's funny, because I started out with card readers.
Oh, that's, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't have I went to University of South Carolina. We didn't have computers. We had a computer room that had these ice cooled huge machines, these computers, and then everything else was remote. And you filled out punch cards. You had to write in assembler language and code it, and then eventually we learned a couple of other languages. Eventually we got some terminals. That was kind of cool. Yeah. So yeah, I have just a head full of useless knowledge. That's so out of date.
Yeah. Uh, that sounds good. So, did your parents dance?
No. I'm from the South. My parents were Southern Baptists, which means that you don't make love standing up because somebody would think you were dancing.
Oh,
and so and we were big in church. My brother was the choir director in our church, and so we were real big in church every Sunday night, and Wednesday when I was growing up, and so it was actually frowned upon. I mean, they gave me a hard time about it because dancing wasn't cool, and especially me because I had long hair. This was back in the 70s, the early 70s, and I had hair almost to my waist. I wore shoes when I went to church. That was about the only time we wore shoes. Other than that, we went barefoot because that was what you did. We wore jeans and tie-dye shirts and went barefoot. And so yeah, it was. So no, my parents had nothing to do with it. My mother, it was, oh gosh, it was probably years before my mother ever saw me call.
wow. And so they probably didn't approve of you calling either then.
They did not. No,
No.
not in the beginning. No, and the church, my church, the deacons, they all gave me such a hard time until I drove up to church in my first Cadillac, and they said, You're making a living at that. I said, well, I'm going to school, paying my way through. Nobody had to pay my way. My parents didn't have to worry about paying my tuition. I covered it. I was able to buy a new car, and they quit bothering me then when they found out I could tithe.
That's funny. Gosh. Well, can you describe yourself in one word?
Let's see. Brian's already taken humble.
I don't remember what Ken said his one word was.
I would say, I would say determined.
Ah, sounds pretty good. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you almost have to be to do this, especially back when I first started. Uh, it wasn't like it is now as far as calling wise. It was a lot. There was number one. There was a lot more dancers, um, but it was a big deal back in the day when a traveling caller came to town. If Ken Bauer came to town, that was a big deal, and everybody came. And that's what, when I saw guys like Bauer and Dick Jones and Shoemake and Wade, and I saw what these guys do, that's really what made me decide that I want to do it full time. So I was determined to be like those guys. I wanted to be I never wanted to be a choreographer. I never wanted to be a club caller. I wanted to be the full time traveling square dance caller and festival doer. I wanted a business card about this big, so put everything on it. That's what I started out wanting. I wanted to be that way, and that's the way I set my goal when I first started calling. I wanted to be like those guys. I was determined to be that way. So I guess that's as good a word as any.
Yeah, I would say so. You keep working at it, Tony. You're going to get there one of these days.
I am. I'm still trying. I'm still learning. I'm still learning every day.
I just want to know if that box behind you is my records that I haven't gotten yet.
No, this box here, the big box.
Yeah.
You won't believe what? That's a Christmas tree.
You're late.
Well, no. Okay, the best time to buy a Christmas tree, if you're going to buy a nice Christmas tree, is Christmas Day or the day after Christmas. Well, those 2 days are the best days, and so I ordered one on Christmas Day, and it got shipped here, and I just been too lazy to take it home, because then if I take it home, I have to put it in the attic.
Oh.
Here, it's nice. I can set stuff on it. See, like if I can come back here, I can set my drink. I can talk to you, have my drink. I got a place to put everything.
First class.
Yeah. Yeah. So, do we dare ask, where are you now then?
I'm at my office in Charlotte. I work for my wife's father. So I have a nice little office, and it's a family construction company.
Oh yeah.
And so I work here. My wife works here. My father-in-law owns the place. He works here. His wife has an office. Kim's brother has an office. So it's kind of like a family operation.
Yeah. Neat.
Yeah, I got some cool stuff in here. You can't see it because of my camera, but I've got like let's see. You guys have been calling a while. Let me see if I can get this out. Any of y'all remember? Can y'all see that? Let me get where you remember this thing?
Geez.
Oh yeah.
This is the original one from the Do-Si-Do shop in Memphis, Tennessee.
Oh yeah.
I think I have that one.
I
I have one like it.
Yeah.
I had one that I wore all the little men. Their heads were pointed because I would grab them so many times of grabbing them. It wore the heads down. They all had little pointed heads. There was no colors on the board anymore. And somebody, I can't remember, there was a dancer in Memphis, because the Do-Si-Do shop was in Memphis, Tennessee for years. That's where everybody bought their records. And he made these things. And there was a dancer in Memphis that had one. And I was doing a dance there, and I was talking about it. And she found it and mailed it to me. So it's pristine. It just sits here. It just sits here in my office.
Ah.
I have that. I have a, let's see, I have a pair of Jerry Story's boots. I have a shirt. I have one of Randy Darty's Darty Dancing shirts. I have let me see what else I got in here the square dance wise. Did you guys ever see that picture that Dean Singleton did of he called it the five white doves, I think it was.
Yeah.
It's Lee Cotman, Beryl Maine, Jerry,
Oh yeah.
Marshall Flippo, Tim Mariner, Jerry Haig. I have one
Yeah.
of those in here. It's a nice little, it's a little homey office. You can't tell from here because you can't see much. All you can see is my Christmas tree.
That's didn't really know what it was, but I figured I'd check on those records. I still use some records once in a while. Uh, so how do you figure things have changed? Oh no, I wanted to ask you this first. How'd you meet your wife?
She was a dancer. Her whole family danced, and I was doing. I guess the first time I met any of them was at Myrtle Beach Ball in Myrtle Beach. It was a big dance that I did for many years. It back in the day. It was huge. I met them probably in like 90. I think 97 is when they started dancing. But that dance in Myrtle Beach at its peak was around 5,000 dancers, and really really big dance. Anyway, so she and my ex-wife and I and she and her ex-husband and her mother and father, we all became pretty good friends, and they formed GSI, and I kind of got involved in the beginnings of GSI with that. That was formed by Kim's family. And eventually I got divorced, and shortly after I got divorced, Kim and her husband separated. We worked so much together, things just kind of put us together. We became good friends, and then she made me marry her. So I've known her since 97, I guess. 98. Yeah.
Super. Is there anything in your calling career that you didn't expect that happened?
Gosh. Really, I don't think so. It's, I need this to sound right, but gosh, the activity's been so good to me. I've been everywhere that pretty much I wanted to go except Egypt, and I'm not sure they have dancing there. So no, I don't know that. I don't know that it was. I can't think of anything because, like I say, I've done all the big dances. If there's a callers, all of us, there's a bucket list of dances in the country that you want to say that I've done. You want to say, for years it was, you want to say you've done Bakersfield, you want to say you've done Wasca, you want to say you've done Silver State and Golden State and some of those, and I've done those, and I've been to the other, I've been to Japan, I've been to Europe, and so, God, the activity's been so good to me. It's let me go places I would never have gotten to go. So no, man, I can't say this. It's been a great run for me. So no, I can't think of anything that I would want to do that I haven't done except go to Egypt.
Got to ride that camel.
I'm gonna get on that camel.
Yeah.
I am going. Kim and I we're going to Vietnam maybe next year. I think we're going to do a cruise, a Thailand Vietnam cruise in 24. I think that's the plan right now. So that's another one on my bucket list that I'm sure they don't have any dancing, but I'm going to go anyway.
Oh, that sounds good.
Tony, there is one club in Egypt that does dance.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Pyramid Squares.
Do they do triangles? Jeez, pyramid
Oh,
square.
that's bad.
I know. I thought it was pretty bad.
Now, Ken's been to Russia. I would love to go to Russia again. Not now, but I would love to go to. Not necessarily. I want to go to St. Petersburg. I would love to see St. Petersburg.
Yeah, beautiful city.
Yeah. So Ken's been. I haven't been. He's got one on me there.
I've been to Russia 5 times, and St. Petersburg twice, and I get invited every year but it's not a good time to go.
No, probably not. So, that goes along the lines of you've been everywhere, but have you seen everywhere?
No, now see, I don't get to see many things,
Yeah.
but like we were talking earlier before we went live, so many of the things that you want to see, you're disappointed once you see them. I want to see the Mona Lisa, and I got within about 75 yards of it, and it looked to be about the size of a postage stamp. Uh, I went, I did do the Eiffel Tower, and it was okay. I went to see the Little Mermaid in Denmark, and she's out in the middle of a harbor. You can't get within 50 yards of her, and she's very small, and so no, I don't get I've been everywhere, but I don't get to see much. I'm doing it now in the last 10 years or so. I'm going somewhere and staying longer and enjoying it more than what I used to. I've done things like fly to Frankfurt, Germany, and do a Saturday night dance. Leave on Friday, get there on Saturday morning, call Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, and fly home on Sunday. I've done that more times than I care to think about. Not necessarily Frankfurt, but something like that. Just flying and just stay one day and come back. Now, if I go and like I'm going to Japan. I'm going to Japan in July. I'm going twice this year. Normally, I go to Japan every year. I have for the last since the early '80s. I've gone every year. And typically, before I would fly in on Wednesday, get there on Thursday, work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, come home Monday. Now I'm going to fly over on Monday. I'm going to get there Tuesday. I'm going to go around and see things on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Work Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Come back and stay Monday, and come back on Tuesday. So I'm seeing things now that so I'm enjoying it a lot more. But you got somebody, Kim likes to fly. She likes to go with me. Before, when I was married, before I had young kids, and so my wife at the time couldn't travel with me because we had young kids at home. So now I've got somebody that can go with me and enjoy the stuff with me. So it's kind of cool. So now I'm seeing things now that I didn't see before.
Yeah. That's the thing that we miss a lot, and of course, a lot of the younger callers see you doing these things, thinking, this is fabulous. That you must really have a great life out of it. But based on that, I'm sure you can tell me about many of the lonely times. Has there been a particular time when you felt the loneliest?
Oh gosh, so many. Yeah, especially when I was young and traveling. When I first started traveling, I went full time in 1980, and so I would have been 24, 25, and yeah, there's a lot of times you just and I'm not a big drinker. I like going out with friends. But I go to a bar with friends, but like if I'm on the road, if I'm traveling and it's just me, I generally don't drink. I don't go out to a bar or anything. I finish my dance, I go to the room, and so I used to spend a lot of time. If you remember back, oh gosh, years and years ago when like Ron Pompey and these guys would have all these infomercials on late night. That's what I spent late nights watching and buying stuff that I could never use. A lot there's a lot of times that just you in a hotel or just you in a car, and still sometimes it still is, and then it gets more lonesome now the older I get, because now I'm used to having Kim with me most everywhere I go, and so now if I do go somewhere by myself, it's long. I just did how many days was I gone? 6 days. I was down in Texas and Arizona, and I was gone 6 days, and I can't tell you how many times I called home. That's just I'll tell you. But let me tell you what, a small world. I was in Houston, Texas, 2 weeks ago, and I was checking out of my hotel. I was staying at a Marriott at the airport in Houston Intercontinental, and normally when I check out of a hotel, I just leave and they mail me the receipt. I was walking past the front desk to get to my car, so I stopped to turn in my keys. And the gentleman working the desk, he said, "Would you like a receipt?" I said, "No, I'll just email it to me." And as I'm walking out, he says, "Excuse me," he says, "your last name is Oxendine." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Funny, you pronounced it correctly, because most people, it's usually Oxendine." I said, "Funny you said it right." He said, "Well, I should. It's my name." And I said, "Really?" I said, "Where are you from?" He said, "South Carolina."
Oh my gosh.
I said, "Well, I'm from South Carolina." I said, "What city?" He said, "Sumter." I said, "Well, I'm from Sumter." Long story short, it's my first cousin's son. I mean, my second cousin's son. I had not seen them in probably 40 years or better.
Wow.
But so that kind of brightened up what was a lonesome trip. So then I came back and stayed at the same hotel 3 days later. I was coming back in town, so I stayed there, and so we got to go out so I wasn't by myself after the dance. I came back and I had a friend to talk, so it was kind of cool. So then it wasn't so lonesome. But generally, there's a lot of just me time. So and I don't know that there's one particular time that I was more lonesome than any others, but it's a lot of it. It's not all it's cracked up to be. I could not tell you how many times over the years that I have been to the West Coast, either California, Washington State, or Oregon. I don't know how many times, and how many dances I've done over there. I have never put my foot in the Pacific Ocean.
Wow.
I have in Hawaii when I was in Hawaii, but never from the West Coast have I been on the beach. Never.
Wow.
And so no, I still don't get to see a whole lot where I go.
Well, there's a goal.
Yeah.
Next time. Yeah, I always found the holiday ones, like New Year's Eve, was probably the worst one if you were alone.
Well, I've always taken holidays off. I got friends that they'll work, it doesn't matter, but I've always taken like 4th of July, not Memorial Day, 4th of July, Father's Day, Mother's Day, birthdays, Christmas, Easter's, those kind of things. I've always tried to stay home on. So I've always kind of been home those times a year.
Oh, okay. So, before we get to the other side of the mic, you've probably had a few embarrassing moments on stage.
More than I care to remember.
Can you remember any particularly good ones?
Oh, let's see. Yeah, I guess I could.
Yeah.
Oh, let me think of it. See, some you can't, some are good. I was doing a dance in Louisville, Kentucky. And that was at a time this would have been in the 80s. And the style of dress for most of us, we wore these really tight pants. And they were like, and they were flared at the bottom, but they were tight. I keep just bearing it. And so I'm calling and I've got these tight pants on and these shirts you got a nice shirt that's open down the collar and the zipper busts in my pants. And so what can you do? So there was a lady there had some safety pins. So I safety pin my pants and I finished the dance but there's no cool way to stand when your pants are not zipped and there's no cool way to stand and call. That was one of my best ones. I did a dance. My first trip to Sweden would have been in 1980 or 81, and my luggage got lost. And so I was there a day, and so my luggage didn't make it the first day, and it didn't make it the second day. So on the second day, it took me shopping. Well, I was, they wound up buying me a warm-up suit because that's what I traveled in was a warm-up suit, but they called it a jogging dress, and so they put me in this jogging dress, and so on Friday night I called the dance in this jogging dress, and Saturday my luggage still hadn't come, so I got a new shirt, and I'm calling it a new T-shirt in the same jogging dress on Saturday afternoon. Saturday night, my luggage finally makes it, and they bring my luggage to the dance. And so they bring my luggage up to the stage,
Gee.
and these 3 or 4 of these beautiful, gorgeous Swedish women decide that they're going to dress me. So they take a sheet and they put it in front of me. I'm calling. I have a microphone. I'm calling, and they put a sheet in front of me and they proceed to undress me. Complete down to my underwear, and then they start putting clothes back on me, and they dress me. And it's hard to be cool when you have a microphone in your hand, 3 gorgeous women trying to dress you, and I'm trying to step into pants and socks, and so they did finish a dress. That was a cool one. That was a cool one.
Yeah, that sounds really great. Oh lordy. Let's go to the other side of the mic then.
Go.
If you, and I think we all get stressed out sometime or another, things aren't going maybe quite right and whatnot. How do you de-stress?
I don't get real stressed. I'm really laid back. I very seldom get mad. If you ask any of my friends, most of my friends probably have never seen me mad. I don't lose my cool very often. So I don't have that problem. I don't take my work home with me. And I know that, and I spent a long time with my children explaining this to my kids when they were kids. When I take them to a dance, my kids always looked upon it as dad's going to work. So it was always, so none of my kids dance. I have three children, none of them dance, because they never seen square dancing as something that's fun. They always saw it as something daddy went to work, and if they went, they had to behave. And so I still think of it that way when I go to work at 8 o'clock. And then it's my job from 8 until 10 or whatever the time it be. And then at 10, I can let it go and I can leave and it's, so I can separate the two. So I don't generally take the stress home with me. So some of the guys, I know I have friends that do this. They get worked up and they get mad and I very seldom, I don't think you'd ask any of my friends. I don't think most of my friends have ever seen me lose my cool. I don't drink a lot, except maybe with friends and on special occasions, like Tuesdays.
Yeah. Well, that's one of my have you ever, no, just before my have you ever questions. So is it wine, beer, mixed drink, or abstain?
I'm a bourbon man. If I drink, I'm a bourbon man by trade.
Ah.
I like a good bourbon. Although I do like German beer. I'm not a big beer fan, but I do like German beer. So if I'm going to Germany, this year I'm going for 2 weeks. So I'll probably do my share of it then.
Wow, that's great. Thing I find about Germany and some of the other countries in Europe is I'm so used to having a burger or whatever, and it's not that ouzo drink, that they serve before everything.
Yeah.
I figure ouzo is a mixture of kerosene and Vicks Vapor Rub.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
That's why you shoot it down fast so you don't have to taste it.
You made me think of another embarrassing moment. I'll tell you, this would be my most embarrassing moment, I think. I just thought when you were talking about overseas, my very first trip to England would again been in the early 80s. And I'll tell you what a novice I was is that was when, at least in the Southeast over here, the big shoes were Reeboks, which had the British flag on them. So I assumed they were made in England. And so while I was over to England, I was looking for Reeboks, and they're not. But I've got this really big dance, and there's probably 40 squares on the floor. Paul Bristow was there, and so I'm calling, and I've done a patter, and it's everything's rocking and rolling. So I'm going to do a song that my friend Larry Letson recorded. This is before Royal Records. And Larry, this was a record that Larry recorded on another label. It might have been Riverboat or something. It was a song called "Double Shot of My Baby's Love." all right, which in South Carolina, that's a real famous song, and it's what we call beach music. And the state dance of South Carolina is the dance called the shag, which is kind of like a slow jitterbug. So on the microphone, I tell these people in Great Britain, in London, 40 squares of them, I said, okay, now listen, this song here I'm about to do, whenever this song comes on the radio at home, everybody gets out in the middle of the floor and they start shagging. Well, I had no idea that shag meant a whole different thing in England than it meant. And so that you could have heard a pin drop. And I did the song, nobody clapped. And I thought, well, that's just kind of weird, because before they were clapping and jumping up and stomping. And Paul Bristow came up and explained to me, my faux pas. And so I would guess that was probably my most embarrassing moment.
So, how many people have you called for and passed away before the end of the dance?
3 times. That's why I quit doing New Year's Eve dances, for that same reason. I had a gentleman pass away on the first tip. I did a New Year's Eve dance this year. It was the first time in probably, 40 years that I did a New Year's Eve dance, because a man, and in fact, he was an officer of the South Carolina Federation, died first tip. I mean, just the beginning of the first tip. And I said, that's no way to start off a new year. So I've had it happen 3 times.
Yeah.
Which is 3 times too many.
Isn't it though? Yeah. Take a look at my list.
Now I'll tell you what. Do you know Bobby Newman?
What's his last name?
Bobby Newman. He used to.
Oh yes. Okay.
All right, Bobby Newman worked in South Texas, down in the valley in South Texas years ago, and I guess Bobby had somebody die at his dance, keeled over. The paramedics came out to get him, and they tried to resuscitate him, could not. Then there was some type of emergency they got called to, so they took the guy, put him on a gurney, covered him up with a sheet, put him back in the Western wear shop.
Oh, jeez.
Left him, and Bobby finished the dance.
Wow.
Finished the whole dance with the dead guy in the Western wear shop.
My God.
I don't know that I could have done that. I did one dance. The guy died towards the latter part of the dance, maybe middle part, and I had like an hour left. And after, we didn't know he died, they took him off. At that time, we didn't know he died. But then you're trying to do a song, and there's such a downer on it. What kind of songs do you do at that time? The big songs were like Bring Back.
Yeah, right.
So every song had another meaning.
Yeah. That's not good.
Oh no, it's not. It's not.
Bring back.
It's hard to be cheerful.
I have to remember that in case anybody crooks on me again. I have to go through all those titles to find the best.
Oh yeah.
Man. So do you read much?
Yes, I'm a big reader.
Favorite authors?
I have several. My all-time 2 favorite authors are Stephen King and Dean Koontz.
Oh yeah.
And I have every book that Stephen King has ever written in hardback.
Oh my.
And I have most everything that Dean Koontz has done. Now, I still buy Stephen King in hardback, although I read a Kindle now.
Yeah.
My other 2 favorite authors, I like an author named Harlan Coben.
Okay.
You may not have heard of. I like Greg Iles.
Don't know that.
And everybody likes Patterson.
Oh yeah.
And I like Grisham.
Yeah.
I just finished reading a Grisham book and just finished reading a Patterson book. I'm reading what am I reading right now? Baldacci's new one.
Okay.
I just finished, Stephen King had a new, I just finished his just a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, there's never a time that I'm not reading. That's what I do when I'm on the road. When I go to dinner, breakfast, I carry my Kindle and I read. On a plane, I read. So books don't last me long. So that's why Kindles are so great for me now.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I'm lucky down here in the Keys, they have a library that has loads, everything, So,
you in the where are you? I was just in Key West.
oh, were you really?
I
Oh, yeah.
was.
Something.
We did a cruise. Did a cruise. We left where were we? We left Miami, and our first stop we spent the day in Key West, and we rented a golf cart and rode all over town. We just had a wonderful time.
Oh, yeah.
Great town.
It's beautiful. Yeah, we're halfway up. We're halfway up the Keys in what's called Long Key. So Key West is mile marker 1. We're at mile marker 66.
Okay.
So as I sit here, as I've told everybody else before, off my right side is the Atlantic Ocean, about 100 yards, and about 100 yards to the left is the Gulf of Mexico.
Oh gosh.
So yeah, I called for a club down here in the winter, so it's kind of it's not work. It's the best place in the world to be, not in Cochrane where it's 40 below and 4 feet of snow. Anyhow, enough about me. What's your favorite food?
Seafood.
Yeah.
And I would be hard pressed to pick my favorite type of seafood. In fact, I cooked dinner here Friday night. We had fish, and then last night Kim and I went out to dinner, and I had seafood gumbo. I had a dozen oysters and a bowl of seafood gumbo.
Wow.
So almost any kind of seafood. I like almost anything. Although I'm not a huge fan of lobster.
Oh, really?
Now, the only time I ever eat lobster, I call for years. Been calling for a group up in Maine, and one of the dancers at the club was a lobster fisherman, and so for a lot of years we used to have a lobster party at his house. He'd go out and catch the lobsters, and I mean these things were fresh. I mean freshly caught. Bring them back. We'd cook and eat them there. But other than that, I generally don't. I don't eat lobster. I like this time of year because it's crawfish season now.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, crawfish are really good.
So you like all the parts, like the insides and the outsides, the whole.
Suck the heads. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to. You got to.
You
Yeah.
got to. I guess I'm a fair, what do they call it, fair weather seafood eater.
Oh, I pretty much live on chicken and fish since I had this stroke back in 13, and I found out that I had high blood pressure and high cholesterol, and because I was living, I'm on the road, I'm living fast food, hamburgers and French fries, and so I pretty much eat chicken and fish nowadays.
Chicken and fish.
So I don't know that Hannah,
Hi.
Yeah, there she
how are
is.
you?
Hi. How are you?
Hey, Helm Schmicka, hey.
Hey, I'm Smika. Hey.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
So any kind of seafood. I think probably my favorite fish would be branzino. You can't hardly find it.
Never
When
heard
I
of it.
can, I like branzino.
What is that?
It's a good fish. I had it first time on a ship on a cruise, and it was just great. So I order it now whenever I can. There's a show called on the Food Network called Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. And so I go looking for those seafood places that are on that show when I go to town. So when I went to Key West, I already knew where I was going to eat dinner.
Oh, wow. Super.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to have you on again, Tony, because there's so many more questions, and I'm sure that some of the folks have some more for you. I've got my have you ever portion of the show. Okay, so here, have you ever ridden a motorcycle?
Yes.
Did you own one?
No.
Okay. Jumped out of a plane?
Hell no.
And you're friends with Wade? Hey.
Mm.
I'm
tell
sure
everybody. I don't tell everybody that.
Yeah, right. No. Have you flown in a hot air balloon?
Yes.
Did you like it?
That was fun.
Yeah. Isn't it great? Scuba dive?
Yes.
Super. Where?
Hawaii.
Oh, yeah. That's great. Have you ever worked in a factory?
Yes.
What did you have to do?
I worked in one summer I worked in the warehouse of a child's clothing company that made sold clothes to Belks and Pennies and Sears. Same dress, different label.
Okay, yeah.
I was in the warehouse, loading boxes and trucks.
Oh yeah, yeah. Have you ever pulled taffy?
Okay, I've never pulled taffy.
Okay. Have you been in the armed forces?
I have not. They wouldn't take me. They would.
No.
I was lucky. Well, when I came along at the tail end of the Vietnam War, and my draft number was very very low, and I was going to be gone. And fortunately, we got out of there in time, but so I didn't have to go. But I live in a town that has a huge air base. So I've grown up around the military all my life. So I'm I'm a huge patriot. I'm a patriotic kind of guy. I just never served.
Yeah. Ever ridden a horse?
Have
Yep. At home, probably.
not a camel.
Not
So
a camel.
Camel's on my list.
Well, a camel is a horse that's been made up by a committee, isn't it? Um, uh, have you survived a heartbreak?
Oh yeah, hasn't everybody?
Yeah. I won't ask.
Oh hell, I've had two girls that just really broke my heart. I'll hate them forever.
Have you ever had a problem when you're calling and something in your life has really, well, like a divorce might have happened, or somebody died in your family or whatever, and you still have to, you're calling?
Yes, it never affected me until Jerry passed away.
Hmm.
And I didn't realize how many songs that like Jerry and I did together that I just don't do anymore and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, with that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's one I saw on YouTube of you and Jerry doing where you go back and forth. Something about
Hey little devil.
Indian devil.
Hey little devil.
Hey little, that's the one. I love that.
Yeah.
Hey little
That's
devil.
I've done that with some other guys. There are some songs that Jerry and I did that I cannot do with it. That just there's nobody that can do them like Jerry, so I can't do those songs again.
Yeah.
So there are some songs that I know I'll never be able to do again the way that Jerry and I did them. There are some songs because a lot of guys copy the stuff that Jerry and I did. So yeah, I've done Hey
Yeah.
Little Devil with other guys.
Yeah.
But there's other songs that Jerry and I did that hell nobody else can do. I've got one. Jerry and I used to do one when we first started calling together. We always closed our dances with one call. It was "Don't It Make You Want to Go Home."
Oh yeah.
So when Jerry passed away, I wanted to do something to remember him. So I redid "Don't It Make You Want to Go Home," and I did the vocal on it, but I'd never called it. And then we had Jerry Stories. We did a memorial dance for Jerry in August 2 years ago, the August after he passed, in Dallas. And we had, I don't know, man, we probably had 40, 50 callers. There was just a buttload of callers there. Big crowd of dancers. And I did the song. I said, I want to close the dance with this one. And I did the song. And I have not done it since. So I did it the one time, and I got through it then. I have no desire to do it again.
Mhm.
I think that's the only one that's really bothered me a whole lot. And,
Yep.
and that one still bothers me quite a bit.
Well, that would be tough. Um, Ever wish you were taller or shorter?
Taller. Wouldn't everyone? I'm 5'10". I'd love to be about 6'2", 6'3". Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that
For my weight, I should be about 6'2".
taller callers are better, I understand. I'm
They're usually stupid. No, see, the problem with taller callers, those guys that are tall like that, they're usually stupid. And the reason is most guys over 6 feet are stupid. And the reason is because it's farther. Oh yeah, ask Lars, my friend. It's from your heart, from your heart to your brain is a bigger distance, and the heart can't pump the blood to your brain like a shorter guy. So these tall people, most of them are stupid. That's not just me saying that. That's a scientific fact.
Boy, I'm glad I'm short. I don't have an excuse.
Carrie likes that one.
That's good. Well, we have a bunch more like that, but I'm not going to get into those. Do you play a musical instrument of any sort?
Play the radio.
Radio? Yeah, okay. Have you ever?
That's a regret. I wish I could play something, and I can't.
Well, we'll have to work on that. I was a music teacher originally, so we can work something out. You know, if you can send me 2 free recordings, I'll teach you how to play piano or something. I don't know.
What a deal! What a deal!
Other than today, have you ever been ecstatically happy?
Sure.
Many times, right?
Yeah, I'm a happy kind of guy most of the time. But yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of things that happened that were just phenomenal. That just made me just jump up to the moon and back. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a good life. Well, I've got one last question, and then I'll turn it over to some of the audience if they want to ask questions. Put you on the hot seat. My last question is, if you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
The one thing,
Yeah.
that I was a good guy.
Okay. That says it. I think you're doing that now. Yeah. Obviously, with the popularity, I would say that you're enjoying.
You could be popular and not be a good guy.
That's true.
And I would like to be known as a good person. I love the popularity. I mean, you can't be in this business and not have a big ego. So I love that. But I would want people to think of me as a good person first, if that were the case. As long then I know I've done okay, because I don't like to. I just like to be a good guy.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. Yeah. Ego is. Larry Letson said it well. He said you leave your ego on the other side of the mic.
True.
You do all your fancy stuff on stage and all the charisma and everything, but once you leave that stage, you're still just one of the masses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Larry Letson. Larry's a very close friend of mine. Larry and I have been we've been friends, dear friends, for almost 50 years, 45 years. And I hate to see him quit, because Larry, in my opinion, Larry was the most creative caller in the business.
Really?
I've always said that. I've always said that he did the most with the least. He wasn't the best singer. He wasn't the best choreographer. But the stuff that he put out was just, singing call wise and material wise, was just so cool. He came up with so many really neat things that as a caller I appreciate it. Maybe dancers don't see it in the same light that we as callers see it. But yeah, Larry was so gifted, tremendously.
Yeah.
I still talk to Larry 2 or 3 times a week.
Do you? Yep.
Yeah.
He was on just a few weeks ago. Yeah. Fun guy.
Yes.
Just so many stories. It's great. Well, let's see if anybody has some questions. Raise your hands, or best thing probably would be to use the little hand waver thing on Zoom. Okay, I got Don Beck here. Don would like to ask you a question.
Don, my buddy. Hey, Don.
How you doing, Tony?
I'm good, man.
Hey, when you talked about your first caller school with a bunch of people, and you said some guy named Davis, was that Johnny Davis?
Johnny Davis, correct. Correct.
Boy, he was one of the people that I always felt was the caller's caller.
Man, he was phenomenal. You were right. From Kentucky, somewhere in Kentucky.
Yeah, and he gave up calling and went just doing bluegrass or something. But I think he's the guy that put Wheel and Deal on the map by using that in one of his singing calls.
He was. I remember that school well. In fact, I just only in the last 5 or 6 years, I found my my alumni picture from that school with everybody in it. Oh God, shucks, what's his name? Oh God, I hate to get old. Okay, the caller from Indianapolis, and he moved down. He called down in South Texas. Now he's in Mobile now. I'll think of it. I'll think of it after the show's done, and I'll call you and let you know who it is. He was in the school with me. Guy about my age. I can't think of his name. Big guy, hefty guy. From India.
Jet Roberts now?
No, not Jet. Not Jet. Jet's from the West Coast.
Okay.
Oh shucks. He was from Indiana, and then he moved down to South Texas, and then he worked in South Florida at the parks, and then now I understand he has an ice cream thing in Alabama somewhere. He sells Dippin' Dots or something like that.
Nick Hartley.
Nick Hartley, there you go.
Oh, yeah.
Nick was in the same school with me.
Yeah. Anybody else?
We have a couple of we have a couple of memories.
I'm not. No, you guys don't get to say anything. Are y'all in Arizona?
Yeah, we're in
back,
Arizona.
back home.
No,
no.
we're in Arizona only for a couple of more weeks, then back to New Jersey.
We got
Jan and Lewis are two of my oldest friends ever in the world. We go back.
No.
We're the same age.
No. Friends for a long time.
Yes.
Tony and I are the same age. Don't give me that.
Our favorite tip ever was when you put on sun chimes at Kirkwood Lodge at the DVD Plus week, and we had this unbelievably dynamite square with Jim and Lauren Williams and Rich and.
But you didn't miss a beat. It was fantastic.
Oh, it was unbelievable.
God, I have not used sun chimes in so long.
Yeah, because you have to have a square that can
absolutely
respond fast enough. Otherwise, it's wasted. It's wasted.
And
I got Kirkwood was fun. That was Square Dance Heaven back in the day.
That it was 10 years of heaven.
I got to say that's that week. Those especially those early DVD weeks we did at Kirkwood's probably the most fun I've ever had calling.
And the breaded catfish.
Yes, and the spin the top twice and spread after each one.
Oh, and you were talking about moments on the stage when the Swedish ladies were getting you dressed.
Yes.
And the other story, and it reminded us of when our kids were really young. For others, our sons were probably about 10 and 12 at the time, and you were calling, and they wrapped you in toilet paper as a mummy from the head down around the mic, and you kept calling without seeing anything. It was fantastic, and you didn't lose a beat. Didn't miss a beat.
I was younger then.
What was Sunshine?
Sun Chimes was a pop tune, and I used to call hash to it.
Oh, okay.
And it was really a distinctive type of song. And now since I used it, I've heard other guys use it since then. I quit using it back, I don't know, 10 years ago. So I decided that I was giving a wrong impression if I used music at a dance that wasn't square dance, that wasn't done by square dance producers, that I was not doing my industry so I quit doing anything that wasn't produced by a square dance label. So so Sun Chimes is one of those that I had to give it. So I still have it. I don't have it on my computer there. I have it. In fact, I probably have it on this big computer here that I have on my desktop that I have at the office. I probably have it on here somewhere.
Oh.
But I don't do it anymore. But yeah, that was fun. It was the first 8 bars were just real recognizable. And the dancers would just go crazy when the first 8 bars played. They know what was coming.
Oh yeah.
Sandy Bryan still uses it on occasion because you need a caller with the flow, the choreography, and the dancers that respond and just flow through the entire song. So good memories.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Anybody else?
Steven's got his hand up.
Oh, okay. Steve. Yes, I see Steve. Yep.
I feel your pain on the 5'10", Tony. I'm 5'10". My arm stretch. By the length of my arm stretch, I'm supposed to be 6'1".
You're
I
working on
I think I'm just short for my weight.
that. Jesus. Oh, Lordy. Well, I think, oh, Don's got another question I can see.
I
Two.
got
Okay.
first question, Tony. When are you going to be in Germany?
I go back in September.
Good, good. Because I'm going to be in November, and I don't want you drawing all the crowds away.
No, you're saying we're taking a tour group over. Jet Roberts and I going over for 2.5 weeks.
I'll be doing a school over there and maybe some other dances.
Oh, I heard you were doing a school over there. Somebody told me that. That's great.
Mostly touristing afterwards, visiting relatives in Prague, etc. My other question, no, it's a complaint. The other day, 3-4 weeks ago, I was on YouTube and I heard you doing an Al Jolson medley.
Yeah.
And so Gail and I decided we would watch the Al Jolson movie, which the story, which I had seen many, many years ago. And I know on some occasions, Joe has asked people, have you ever had a song going through your head that you can't get rid of? I have had every Jolson song on that video at one time or another. For the last 3 or 4 weeks, I've been doing nothing, and all of a sudden, Jolson's up there. So, is that song out on?
Yeah, it's on Riverboat. It's been out for years.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to get it or not.
Yeah, and the true story behind that song is Bob sent that song to me for me to do, and I called him and I told him, I said, Bob, I love you, and I don't mind doing a song for you, but that song is just too hokey for me. I can't, and I said, it's just not, that's not me. And I used the word hokey several times. So he told me, he said, tell you what, Tony, do that at a dance, and if the dancers don't like it or you don't like it, then send it back to me. You don't have to do it. And I said, okay. So I did it. I told him I would. So I did it. And the people just loved it. And so, but the end of it was I didn't like the way he ended it. So I called him back and I said, I'll do the song for you. Can you change the ending? And the next day, he called the guy, the engineer, and redid the ending. And I had the tune the next day.
Wow.
He was that fast.
I've got to admit, I really did enjoy your version when I heard it on YouTube too.
It's on Riverboat, but it's been out. That song's probably 6 or 8 years old now.
I haven't kept up with all the new music for the last 25, 30 years. Shame on me.
Oh, okay.
Tony, we have one more quick memory. Okay, this goes back into the 90s. It was one of the first weekends we went to that you were calling in upstate New York. And after the tip, Jan came up to you and said, that singer that you just did, she said something like, it just doesn't do your voice justice. And you took the record off the record player.
You checked with me. You said, do you mean it? And I said, yes. I love your voice, but this record is not for you.
And you took it off the record player and you went boom, smashed it on the table, and then gave her the pieces. And she still has them.
I still have them.
Well, I guess if Jan didn't like it, it wasn't really good.
We got so many great memories with you, Tony.
Oh, man, I reckon.
Yeah. And the jet ski with Jan on the back.
Oh, the wreck. We almost killed each other.
Yeah.
But we're still here.
Let's go dancing. Thank you, Tony.
Yeah,
Thank you
guys.
for hosting.
I was Jan's birthday present one year.
Oh.
Yeah. Lewis flew me into New Jersey somewhere, and we surprised her for her birthday.
Oh my gosh.
We had a dance for 1 square.
Oh.
No.
No.
We had 6 squares of DVD plus dancers.
That's right.
We handpicked them. We had a meal. We had a cake and everything. And you were doing all these great calls, and we set up all the squares.
I was in and out of there in the same day. I didn't even spend the night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We flew you in, and then you called about 5 minutes before, 5, 10 minutes before the dance, you called me up and you said, "Oh, gee, I'm stuck at JFK." I go, "JFK, that's an hour and a half away." And of course, he was just pulling my leg. He showed up at the dance 5 minutes
And
later.
you said, "Don't worry about
Don't-
it. We have some of your
We have
your
some of your
CDs, some recordings. We'll play those in the meantime."
Great bunch of memories, eh? That's super. Oh, yeah, Michael.
Hi, Tony.
Hi, Mark.
I'm looking forward to when you're coming over to Bavaria. I've got the question.
Mickey, you're not Mike. You're Mickey.
Yeah.
I didn't see your face at first.
And I hope you've been practicing to yodel, or no?
I'm working on my yodeling.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I have to have a serious talk with Tom Crisp. I will meet him before Reno, so we're having a dance down there in Tucson.
Yeah, I can see me yodeling.
I'm looking forward to that, man.
Me too. I'm looking forward to that.
And I have a question. You've been I've seen you come into the dance hall on horses and on Harleys. Is there anything else you can tell where you had before?
It'll be a camel soon.
A camel, and he's we did. Jerry and I used to do a weekend in Germany where we did these really exotic entrances. And he's right. One year we came in on horseback. We rode horses into the dance hall. One year we came in on motorcycles. I've come into the dance hall on a horse-drawn carriage before. The most fun I've had was years ago. There, the city of Wichita, Kansas. They have a week-long festival in Wichita. It's called Windwagon Smith Days, and the whole premise is there was a guy that came all the way across the plains in a wagon that was wind powered. He had a sail on it, and I don't know if it's true or not, but anyway, so his name was Windwagon Smith, and they have a bunch of different festivals and stuff during the week, and one of the things they had at that time was a square dance, and it was a city-sponsored thing. So the city of Wichita hired me to come in, and then everybody who had a button could come to this square dance. So I'm coming from Atlanta to Wichita, and I was flying on Frontier Airlines, and Frontier's not real big in Atlanta back then. This would have been in the 90s sometime probably. And anyway, my pilots, both pilots were sick. They had oysters the night before and they were sick, so they were having to fly in another pilot to take the plane from Atlanta to Wichita. So consequently, I didn't get to Wichita until like the dance is at 8 o'clock. I get there like at 7:45. I land. And when we land, the plane stops on the tarmac, doesn't pull all the way up to the gate, stops at the tarmac. And if you guys have flown back in the day, there were 727s. When you exited 727 back then, before 9/11, you could get out the front or the back, and they had stairs that lowered down out of the back. So they stopped the plane, the steps lowered down out of the back, and 3 police got on the plane. And I thought, what are police on the plane? So they got me. They said, "You need to come with me." So they take me, the plane's still not at the gate. They take me on the tarmac, put me in a police car, and they take me to the dance. And it's at the big convention center in Wichita where they had the national convention. They drive the police car with sirens going into the square dance hall. And these people already squared up because it's now 8:15. I'm late. And so they and there's probably 100 squares, and they parted like Noah parted, Moses parting the sea, and they would put up in a police car. That's probably been my best entrance. That would have to be my best one.
Well, that's almost like Elvis Presley has left the building, right?
Fantastic. Alrighty, guys. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining in today.
Thanks for asking me, Joe. This was very fun.
That's good. That's good. I know, some callers are a little worried when they first hear about it. I think Wade was a little worried, but I don't think Wade's very much like you. He doesn't get stressed about it much. And next week is going to be Mickey. So we don't want to miss Mickey. Yeah.
I'll try to tune in next week.
That'd be great. Well, I'll keep sending out the notices ahead of time. I'll try to make sure everything's correct on my flyers and all that stuff. I want to thank Mark Hart especially. He's done a fantastic job of doing these intros that show up on Yahoo and the newbie callers forum and whatnot as well. They're super. I've got the program. I just don't know how to use it. So I'm going to have to spend some money to get some tutorials. But he's done some really nice ones. Have you seen Did you see the one for today?
No, I didn't see it.
Oh yeah, I don't know, Mark, if we can send that somehow to Tony to see it. Now I'll put this on YouTube. It'll be on YouTube in a couple of days.
Yeah, let me get the link and I'll post it in the chat.
Super. We'll keep the chat open here for a while then. At any rate, it's been great having you, Tony. It's there's so many memories that come from all these things, and hopefully, people like Jan and Lewis, their memories and whatnot help keep you knowing that you're much needed in this activity still, and for a long time yet.
At least to Jan and Lewis.
Yeah, yeah, right. As long as they fly you in, right? Okay, so next, there. Do y'all see in the chat? Mark has put the link in.
Yep.
I got to copy that myself. There we go. Copy. Super. All right.
I don't see it.
Didn't go to everybody, only went to you apparently.
Oh, just to me. Okay, let's who can see?
There it is.
You got it now? Good.
Yeah, we got it.
Oh yeah, to everybody. Yeah, that's great. That's super. Yep, some of the folks that are on the screen right now that are they're coming up to be on this the Zoom interviews. Dave Hutchinson from Canada. Brian Clark is going to be. Yeah, there's Kerry. Brian Clark's going to be on soon. We're going to have Hannah on eventually.
Right.
Yeah.
When is Hannah?
Yeah.
I'll for sure have to come back for that one.
Okay. I think we've got you down somewhere quite a ways down in October or something. Unless we can get you earlier. Di Green's going to be on. She's missing today because her and Terry have to fill in a dance for somebody that was not able to make it. We had Mel. Who else is on here now that I think I can see? Don was on. Don Beck. I think at this point that's what we have. It's been a very full schedule. I sent out an original emails, to about 150 people. I probably got 100 replies.
This is a cool thing.
Yeah. Well, Zoom brings us together.
Yeah.
One way or the other. I mean, I'm from long ago myself, so to see some of these folks again finally is great. So, anyhow, Todd, yeah, we're gonna get Todd in there. We're gonna sneak him in here somewhere. Yeah. So, we'll see y'all next week. Oh, what's it? Carrie's giving us a thing. That Canadian from BC will look up his name. Oops, I missed it.
Probably Ray Brenzy he's talking about. Ray Brenzy.
Oh yeah, Ray probably did, yeah.
Now Ray's a good guy.
Yeah. Super nice family,
I think the world of Ray.
Yeah. So we'll see you all next week, hopefully, folks.
All right, thanks for having me.
Thanks,
Bye,
Tony.
everybody.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Joe. Enjoyed it.
Get a whole family there at one time.
Yeah.
Came in late, but it was good to see you all.
Good.
Joe?
Yeah.
I would like to have a minute with you.
Who's that, Mickey?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yep. I'll stay on.
Okay, cool.
Det visste jag inte de hade gått över på sommartid.
Hi, Colleen.
Bye.
Just like with the Waltons. Everybody, good night, good night, good night, Grandpa.
Yeah, right.